I'm going to put something out here about double your money on palladium. I think when it does go up, it's not going to double right away. It's actually going to hit that point a little over 1,000, then have another correction. But ultimately, palladium is probably going to be maybe twice as much as gold at one point in time. You got to remember, you're dealing with a commodity. You're not dealing with, annuities or something like that. It's going to spike, and that's the thing. Actually, where the hell do people make the most money? It's off of stuff like this. If you got inside knowledge, you're going to really make out. And actually, I think that's where the wealthy, the extreme wealthy, the 1 basis point and 1 basis point, they got the system rigged in their favor, right? But this is another angle on palladium. I'm going to say some of its normal stuff on it. I know 65% of palladium, around 60 to 65% of palladium is used in catalytic converters on cars. And there's a growing middle class in the world, so there's going to be more and more car automotive production, even though there's smaller cars. But that puts a more demand on it globally, right? And it's very infinitesimal, at least small compared to even gold. About 90-something% of it is actually used up. It's used in dental. It's even used in some photography, high-end photography. And it's used in electronics. It's used in your monitors, everything, right? Your cell phone. It's actually, and there's a good part of it now being recycled because it's so rare. It's, it depends on what the hell you read. Sometimes they're saying it's 30 times more rare than gold. I don't think it's that much more rare, but it's a hell of a lot more rare than gold. But the thing is, the above ground palladium that's been mined, it gets used up in all these little places all over the place. It's starting to get more and more recycled because of the catalytic converters, but there's more and more demand coming on with it. Now, there's other new uses that are going to come out, I think, with hydrogen, but I'm going to get on to something else because another angle that nobody else is going to be talking about. And the other new uses are going to be with hydrogen. Hydrogen is going to be the clean fuel of the future. Hydrogen is to make hydrogen or process hydrogen and store hydrogen requires palladium. Palladium basically expands. I think it's a lot, and it produces a hell of a lot of hydrogen processes a lot of hydrogen by purifying it. Actually, there's a process it's a catalyst that actually takes out the contaminants in the hydrogen, and it's used in all the fuel cells in hydrogen. So say for instance we got off of oil or something like that and used this new process. I think there's some secret processes out there that they keep suppressed technology where you can actually split the hydrogen from the water a lot more efficiently. Now I know you can Google this up and they'll tell you, oh, it's too expensive, but I think they have found things out there before and it's suppressed because it would bring down a whole oil racket all over the earth. I mean, it would collapse everything right away. But eventually it's going to come out. That technology is going to come out. And if everybody's using hydrogen for fuel, palladium is going to have a major demand upon it, at least until something else is figured out. But right now, it's the only game in town for processing hydrogen and storing hydrogen and purifying hydrogen. So that you got to have it. So that's going to put even more demand upon it. Now, this is the other angle I'm looking at. I know, like, the leadership in Russia is kind of looking to collapse the West. Their game is, it's like the New World Orders. They're all kind of working with each other, but they're also competing with each other. I think the game with Russia is they want to be on top dog on the New World Order. I think that's always been the game. In the New World Order, the elitists in the West, they're not really seeing the whole picture, maybe. They might be screwing up. I think the Russians actually they're pretty shrewd, in a lot of ways. Putin's pretty shrewd and all that type of stuff. And he's not a good guy. I mean, he's greedy, but, I know he's shrewd and he's ambitious and he's smart, right? But one of the things that Russia has that's needed by the world, where they have like 40% or 43% of the global supply each year, is palladium. Palladium. It would be in their interest to create some kind of panic in that metal. Actually, I don't know how much money they got, but in 2001, palladium actually went up several times the price of gold, and Ford Motor Company paid for it, right? Now, there might have been a lot of collusion going on there between East and West. That's my take on it, even though I have no proof. But my instinct tells me that there was more going on. The Ford Motor Company wasn't that stupid. There probably was something going on where they bid on that, and paid that much for palladium. But somebody in Russia made a shitload of money on that stuff. And I think that's going to happen again. We're going to see a super, super spike in palladium. Right now, the palladium pundits are predicting a double. But if you use a little common sense, and you use the Fibonacci too, if you figure it out from where it is about now, 7-something, and also, going up 60-something percent, 62%, and also the actual point where it was actually at the high before, a little over 1,000, like 1,050, that might be the next point where it hits a hammer, and then it drops down. But ultimately, I think palladium is going to be worth a hell of a lot more than gold. And I think gold is going to be at least $5,000 an ounce. So, I don't know. I mean, if you want to play this game, go ahead. I don't know this for sure, but let me tell you this. I wish I bought all palladium before when it was 175, man. I bought a bunch of it, but I wish I bought all palladium, I mean, in retrospect, I had a good feeling about it, but I was scared to go too much into it because all the people were telling me about silver and shit, I shouldn't have listened to them, Because actually right now, from 175 to where it is now, that's still 4 times, and that's a pretty good gain, man, you know what I mean? But I think the real big gains are going to be coming later. And it's the Russian angle, and just how they want lots of cash in their pockets is going to be the game. They can't bring on palladium fast enough in the West, man. It's too rare. It's just impossible. It's impossible. And, the other thing is, you could say cars are going with more hybrids and stuff like that, but hybrid cars use more palladium than freaking regular cars? You know that? So, like, if you have all these little roller skate cars out there, everybody's buying in India and Brazil and China and stuff like that, and they're hybrids, they're going to use more palladium than even a full-size car that's sold over here in the United States, right? And you multiply that by the number of people that are joining the middle class globally, that's a big demand. Now, say, for instance, fuel goes up to $200 a barrel, right, to get crude oil, and fuel costs go to, like, $12 a gallon. Well, they're going to bring on electric cars, but they're probably going to bring out, you'll probably see this technology come out with the hydrogen, when I was talking about, what Japan had, Genepack, and they must have got this from Stanley Myers from years ago, 7 years ago, or in the 70s, and not 7 years ago, when he developed the car that can actually synthesize water, an engine a process that can synthesize hydrogen from water and then run the hydrogen in the engine. So basically, probably we'll be having all hydrogen-powered vehicles. But if we're doing that, we're probably going to be using a lot more palladium too, because if they could synthesize hydrogen real cheap from water, it's going to get stored. And right now, the only way all the fuel storage tanks requires palladium. So even if we get off oil, and you say there's no catalytic converters, the fuel of the future is probably going to be hydrogen, and that's going to require palladium. So I think it's, at least, and you got to watch, with these things, what I'm saying here too, because commodities do these things like spikes and dips. They don't go smooth. Commodities have, and I really got to say this, commodities have always been known as high risk assets. High risk. No, it's not like you're buying an annuity and you're getting some kind of percentage of, on your money every year. It's high risk, but also can be high reward. So, the thing is, when you invest in commodities, you don't want to go like really strong into it. Now, I have, but I'm pretty crazy for doing that kind of shit. But I realize that, I realize the risk, and I've always realized the risk. But I think there's, already I know I got major payoff on some of this stuff anyway. But the thing is, because I played double leverage and I made a big gain during the time when silver had the big bull, But the thing is, with commodities, if you put some of your money into it and you wait and you're patient about it, you're probably going to get a major reward. And I think palladium is going to be the #1 winner out of all the four main precious metals. And the thing is, like, you can talk about rubidium and stuff, but that's not really traded. And iridium is not really traded. They got a set price. It's a little bit too rare. You want to have one of the four major precious metals that's internationally recognized and actually has a spot market for it. You want to have one of those four. Of the four, I think palladium is actually going to come out the highest. And the Russian elite have a major interest in pushing that stuff way up. I bet any money. I mean, I'm not going to bet on this, but I'm pretty damn certain. Well, I've also read it someplace that the Russians actually have a stockpile of palladium stored in Zurich, Switzerland, that's just waiting for a super spike, and they're going to dump it on the market. So, like, you're going to have to watch for these advisors out there. When it goes up, they're going to be telling you it's going to keep going up because that's the only reason people buy high, right? But I think it is going to go up a lot from where it is right now. Even though it went up a lot since 2008, it's going to go up a lot from where it is right now just because it's so ridiculously rare. It should be worth a lot more than gold just due to its rarity. And the fact that like 95% of it's all used up. It's all used up every year. There's not that much, now it's starting to get where there's about, I think, 7 or 8% of it that's recycled. That's part of your supply that comes back into it. But still, that's nothing. Pretty much all of it gets used up, and it's way, way more rare than gold. And the future outlook for it is there's more and more uses coming out for it. It is in all electronics, just like silver. It's in smaller amounts. And I know you could say it's only in cars, but the problem is there's more and more people wanting to drive cars every year and globally. And if they go to hybrid cars, they'll use up more palladium. And then even if fuel goes away, if there's no, to get away from crude oil, the most likely fuel that's going to be the fuel of the future is going to be hydrogen. So, I expect the next time palladium starts taking off, it's going to go a little over 1,000 incorrect. But ultimately, it can hit some crazy ass prices like, laugh at this shit, like maybe $8,000 an ounce. Because I think gold is going to be at least $3,000 to $5,000 an ounce or more. It sounds really crazy right now to say this kind of shit, but if you're looking at these big overall pictures about the gold to Dow ratio and stuff, if you're looking back at the last 100 years, gold actually went to 1-to-1 with the Dow. The next time, it's probably going to go more than 1-to-1 to the Dow. Like, in other words, if the Dow's at 8,000, gold might be 10,000. But palladium is actually going to do better than gold. So it can get to some crazy-ass number. And, the 8,000 I'm talking about might be too damn low. I know, just don't hold your breath on it. Don't throw all your eggs in it. But, if you want to buy, like, one or even one, it's not so much like ridiculously high risk, even if you do something like that. If you buy one, right? 1 ounce, and forget about it, and then later on, you're probably going to make out. So, there's not too many people that could buy this stuff anyway, because if, like I said, there's not that many ounces available even for investment. It's ridiculous. And you're talking about there's not much silver available for investment. Well, palladium, it's like a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of the number of ounces available for investment for palladium than there is for silver. It's ridiculous. Silver is like tons and tons of silver available for investment versus palladium. So, I mean, palladium can actually be a hell of a lot more volatile, but I still think it's too damn cheap right now. And, for the little guy out there, I'm going to tell you, man, you might want to buy 1 ounce, just one, and just hang on to it. It's, initially it might be going up to 1,000 or so, pull back. But maybe 5 years from now, that damn stuff might be worth some serious bucks, man, and you'd be glad you got it. So just and there's not too many people could buy it anyway, because there isn't that much around, believe me. So I think I'm spot on with this. So, but you're gonna have to wait and be patient. You're gonna have to wait and be patient. That's why you don't put all your money into commodities. And I've always said that. High risk, but can be very high reward too.